Hey guys, what's going on? This is the Eric Barber here with a brand new Cobra Kai video. Hope you guys had a great New Year's. New season of Cobra Kai dropped. That's what I was doing during my New Year's. What else? So we're doing a strongest characters ranking here. Just a few rules before we get started. For one, the character has to fight in the Cobra Kai series. If they only fought in Karate Kid or something, it doesn't count. The character has to be of somewhat importance, so they need like dialogue, a name, something like that, or else they're excluded. And number three, we're going to divide this into an under 18 category and over 18 category, just like how the All Valley does. It makes a little bit more sense that you guys will see a bit later on. All right, so let's go ahead and kick off the power rankings. We're going to start with the under 18s. First off, at the very bottom, we have Anthony LaRusso, completely unremarkable kid. What else sort of holds him back is that he's literally in middle school physique, doesn't really lend him a lot of credit here. So because of that, he's a complete karate fraud as well. Really disgraceful guy. Bottom of the list, don't gotta say much more. Next up, we have Bert. Bert is the sort of guy who gets beat on simply as comic relief all the time. He gets pushed around in seasons 1, 2, 3, 4. He never really gets a win at any point in the series, which is kind of unfortunate. Next up, we have Nate. Nate does a little bit better than Bert. I mean, they're rivals. In some ways, they're equals, but Nate did beat up Bert in the famous season 2 school fight. And that's the last head-on collision that we've seen from him. So for that, Nate is still superior to Bert. Next up, we have Kenny, a pretty remarkable fighter in Cobra Kai. He's a middle schooler, started taking on karate to, combat Anthony LaRusso and his bully tendencies. For the same reasons, he is still just a middle schooler, same as Anthony LaRusso. Yeah, he's fast and he can get some hits on, people like Kyler, Robbie, for sure, but are they going to be damaging blows? Outside of a tournament, I don't think he'd really be the best fighter, and he still is very early on into his karate career. But he's definitely someone to keep an eye out for in Season 5 and Season 6 of the show, as I think his ability to progress and grow is way higher than some of the people that I have up next. And speaking of up next, we have Trey and Cruz. They're sort of lumped in together. They're the thugs from Seasons 1 and Season 2. They used to give Robbie kind of a hard time back when Robbie was just starting his training in Season 1 with Daniel. So obviously they're just sort of locked into that place because they don't take karate lessons. They haven't grown at all. They're just sort of early antagonists for Robbie in this Miyagi Do training. Next up, we have Brooks. Brooks, kind of a big guy, strong guy, not too much of a fighter himself. He got bodied by Hawk in Season 3 of the show pretty easily. Next up, we have Aisha. Aisha is an OG Cobra Kai member in the sense that she's a second student after Miguel. She is really remarkable for the fact that she scored a point on Xander in the Season 1 All Valley tournament. Really remarkable. But as you've seen in Season 4, she's definitely taken a pause on karate for the last 2 seasons. Very unfortunate because, in my opinion, if they kept her character going for Seasons 3 and Season 4, she would have been the Eagle Fang representative, female representative for the karate tournament. But I digress. Next up, we have Mitch. Mitch, also known as Penis Breath. He, does advance his karate here or there. He's a big guy. Not the best, not the most skilled guy, but he does, get some development here or there. He's in the Season 3 house fight. He's not the most remarkable guy there by any means, but he does okay. Next up, we have Chris, who fights Kyler in the Season 4 All Valley. He doesn't put up much of a fight against Kyler, but still wins against Mitch in his 1v1 in Season 2. Next up, we have Devin, the female champion for Eagle Fang Karate. She is most notable for having a relatively competitive showing against Tori. She obviously didn't score any points against Tori, but it wasn't like super easy for her either. Next up, we have Piper, who is stated to be the most athletic girl in the entire school. So she gets a little bit of bonus points for that. She was in karate lessons a little bit before Devin was, so she gets a little bit of a boost from that. Ultimately, she loses to Sam, but she still managed to score a point on her, which is something of note. Next up, we have Kyler. Kyler is a pretty good fighter. He ended up beating Mitch in Season 3, taking his spot on the Cobra Kai team. He has a wrestling background. He loses to a Miguel who just came out of a wheelchair in Season 3, though. Absolutely crazy. So for that, he's not too high. And also, he just doesn't take karate as seriously as someone that is tournament viable. He's always not taking his training seriously, and you can tell that Robbie and Tori actually get kind of annoyed by his lackadaisical approach towards karate. After that, we have Xander. Xander is the Season 1 All Valley tournament winner, and that's not something to sneeze at. That's a really big thing, and he probably would be higher. I was kind of hoping that we'd see him in Season 4 and see how he'd progress, but unfortunately we don't. So the only marker that we have of his skills and ability is Season 1, and so everyone above him just got more development than he did. Next up, we have Sean. Sean really only fights in Season 3, but he is a powerhouse in Season 3. He is absolutely a monster, and he doesn't even have karate training, which is why I think he'll be a huge player in Season 5 once he's out of juvie. But the reason why he's so highly ranked is because he beats up Robbie, a few times. Robbie even says in Season 4, Sean kicked my ass a few times. That's big, So for that, Sean, I think, is appropriately ranked. Next up, we have Dimitri. He's definitely a growing fighter. He is able to become competitive with Robbie by the end of Season 4. Doesn't get any points on him, so, he's not that close. But it's not like it was just a complete wash either. Not to mention, Dimitri at times has had a rivalry with Hawk, and because of that, he sort of just gets a little bit of a higher placement. Next up, we have Tori. She actually is the All Valley champion. We found out later that, she didn't win on the most ethical terms because of Terry Silver. So because of that, I do have Sam still above Tori. Next up, we have Sam, the strongest female fighter on the show. She has never lost to Tori outside of technicalities, and also she is an embracer of both Eagle Fang and Miyagi Do styles of karate, something that has definitely paid off in the show. Next up, this might be a little bit controversial, but we have Miguel as the third greatest fighter in Cobra Kai. And Miguel's placement does seem a little low, because for one, he's the Season 1 All Valley champ. Even Hawk in Season 4 says no one's beaten Miguel. Really big thing. But, the back injury from Season 2, at the end of Season 2, him being in a wheelchair for most of Season 3, and Season 4, his mental health just is not in the right spot to be gunning for the top spot in Cobra Kai. He's a great fighter. He's a dominant fighter, even with all those setbacks. He's a super strong fighter, He beat Kyler when he was just out of a wheelchair, and he was still able to be really dominant for a lot of the tournament. So I think in Season 5, when he reaches his true potential, he'll be back up at that number 1 spot. Next up, we have the Season 4 All-Valley male winner, Hawk, a student who has trained under Johnny Cobra Kai, Chris Cobra Kai, Eagle Fang, and Miyagi Do, so he has some of the most styles under his belt. He also easily dominated Kyler and had an extremely by-the-hair match with Robbie. Hawk ends up winning, but as many of you guys know, that was sort of because Robbie had a lapse of judgment there where he sort of thought about the implications of Kenny. So because of that, I still have Robbie higher, but Hawk is neck and neck with him. And honestly, Miguel, Hawk, and Robbie have always been very competitive and close in terms of fighting ability with each other. Lastly, our final fighter for the under 18s in Cobra Kai is Robbie Keane. Absolute crazy fighter. He beat all of the Cobra Kais at the beginning of Season 4, pretty much at once, by the way. And, he also defeated Hawk technically due to a little distraction by Kenny. He didn't, but I think there's that implication there. But like I mentioned earlier, it's pretty much neck and neck between Hawk and Miguel pretty much at any time throughout the show. Alright, now we can go ahead and move on to the over 18 portion of the video. At the very bottom of our over 18 list, we have Louis LaRusso Jr. The reason why Louis is ranked so low is because him and a few biker gang people went to attack Johnny in a 3v1 scenario, I believe, and Louis was even armed with a bat and still lost. And that's pretty much the only fight that we see from him. Pretty poor performance. Next up, we have Stingray, who makes his debut in Season 2, joins the Cobra Kais, does pretty well in the forest fights and does well in the school fight. But you got to keep in mind, he's only really fought kids. And, that's not really impressive considering, you're a grown man. He appears in Season 4, pretty unremarkable, and a bunch of other characters just talk down on him. And that's pretty much all he is at this point. Kind of sad, feels like the character devolved, but I digress. Just not a great fighter, and it's only really fought kids. Next up, we have the OG Cobra Kai, like Jimmy, Bobby, Tommy. I sort of bunched them all together just to simplify the video a bit. They're good fighters for sure, great fighters in Karate Kid 1, but they just don't take karate as seriously as they used to. And, because they're just adults living normal adult things, while everyone above them sort of has their life revolved around combat to some degree. So, because of that, that's why they're ranked a little bit lower. Next up, we have Captain George Turner, Kreese's commanding officer in Vietnam, and Terry Silver's commanding officer as well, now that I mention it. He's definitely a really big martial artist. He almost kills Kreese in a fight to the death, but Kreese ends up, outplaying him, and it's ultimately Turner who dies. Not to mention, after that, Kreese only grew because, he had a chance to hone his skills, whereas Turner literally died. So his entire growth just stopped completely there. Which leads into our next guy. We have Kreese himself. He's able to be competitive with Daniel and Johnny fighting to this day. He's always lost to Mr. Miyagi, which counts as well. So because of that, I think he's ranked perfectly underneath Daniel and above Turner. And that brings into our next guy. We have Daniel. I thought he got a massive power boost in Season 3 by learning the pressure point technique, and it obviously worked very well on Kreese at the end of Season 3. However, it did not work too well on Johnny, and Johnny's the guy right above Daniel. And keep in mind, they're so close, they might as well be equals, and I think the show wants us to treat them as equals. And the reason why is because when they had that point competition, they both ended up knocking each other out. I believe Johnny is just very, 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 just a hair better than Daniel at the end of season 4. And the main reason for this is just Johnny's a little bit more of a natural fighter and adaptive fighter as well. What really struck me was when Daniel used the pressure point technique on him, which I believe was Johnny's first time actually witnessing that attack. Rather than when Daniel succumbed to it right away facing Chosen, Johnny was able to adapt to it. It still led to a tie though. So if I could rank them equally, I would. But to me, Johnny just has a really small hair of an advantage over Daniel. But really, virtually equals. Next up, we have Terry Silver. And in my original rankings, I actually had him below Daniel. And the reason for this is because of his performance in Karate Kid 3. I thought it was very similar to how Kreese went up against Miyagi, and because Kreese is below Daniel and Johnny, I thought he'd be more of the same. But a few people from the community put a lot of emphasis on the fight that he had with Johnny. I didn't take it as seriously because Terry took a cheap shot right at the start, and Johnny's fading in and out of consciousness and his ears are ringing. But a little bit of time passes before they actually fight, 30 seconds to a minute. So maybe that's to show that Johnny's actually recovered and he's fighting again. That was a lot of people's logic. And Terry does beat him from a technical standpoint. Well, he beats him, but it was mainly through his superior technique. And he's quite limber and, battle ready for his age. So for that, I have Terry Silver above Johnny. But if you're like me and think the head blow could have affected things, I guess we gotta wait for season 5 to see what really happens, because we're definitely gonna see some head-to-heads there. And the top fighter in all of Cobra Kai history thus far is Chosen. And the reason why, Chosen just really ragdolled Daniel the whole time. Daniel was in Okinawa. He, knows a lot of moves that Johnny doesn't know. And Chosen is, dedicated his whole life to karate, whereas everyone else, took some breaks from karate for quite some time. But Chosen's always been dedicated to the martial art. He is, the true heir to the Miyagi throne, and Mr. Miyagi himself is the greatest fighter in the whole Karate Kid universe. So for that, Chosen is the #1 fighter in the Cobra Kai universe. Thank you guys so much for watching, everybody. Leave your comments on what you thought about the video. Was there anything you disagreed with, agreed with? I love to hear it all, and I'll be replying to all the comments because I'm really curious to see what you guys rank everyone else. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos. Happy New Year's again, guys. Peace out.